Survival from spiders. You will hear in this video. Liam, a self-taught survival enthusiast, embarks on a harrowing challenge to spend 7 days alone in a remote jungle without supplies. His initial excitement turns to dread as he encounters increasingly menacing spiders that invade every aspect of his life, from his food to his shelter. As the days progress, these spiders grow in number and size, their behavior becoming eerily deliberate and coordinated. Liam's attempts to escape only lead him deeper into the jungle, where his mental state begins to unravel under the relentless fear of being hunted. Nightfall brings a new wave of terror as the spiders swarm, overwhelming him with their sheer numbers. By the final day, Liam is trapped in a nightmarish web of silk and paranoia, struggling to escape the clutches of the jungle's malevolent inhabitants. The story concludes with Liam's fate, left shrouded in mystery, his final moments captured in chilling, haunting detail as the jungle waits for its next victim. Part 1. The challenge commences. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine embarking on something like this, yet here I stand at the brink of an adventure. Well, the brink of my personal frontier, at least. Before me lies a jungle that seems to pulse with an untamed vitality. This is not a spontaneous decision. It's the culmination of months of meticulous preparation. I've devoted endless hours to survival videos, devoured bushcraft literature, and subjected myself to smaller, incremental challenges. All of this has led to this moment. 7 solitary days immersed in the wilderness, armed with nothing but my instincts and a camera to capture the journey. Drawing in a deep breath, I let the humid air saturate my lungs. The heat already weighs heavily on me, despite my not yet having ventured into the dense foliage. But that's part of the ordeal, isn't it? To overcome discomfort and test my true mettle. The jungle feels almost sentient, as though it is observing me with the same intensity that I am scrutinizing it. The faint drone of insects, the distant cries of birds, and the rustling of leaves overhead create a soundscape that is as captivating as it is disconcerting, a fitting stage for the challenge I've undertaken. They say the initial step is always the most daunting. I take that first step, crossing the invisible boundary separating the familiar from the wild unknown. The transformation is immediate. The distant noises are now enveloping me. The canopy above filters the sunlight, casting everything in a verdant, shadowy veil. It feels like stepping into an alien world, where my presence is an anomaly. Day 1, I announced to the camera, raising it to frame the scene around me. This marks the beginning of my 7-day ordeal. No provisions, no equipment, just myself and the jungle. I've trained rigorously, prepared to the best of my ability, but the unknowns here are endless. The camera serves as my tether to the outside world, a reminder of the audience following my every move. Yet here, I am utterly alone. It's both thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. The first few hours are spent scouting for an ideal campsite. The underbrush is thick, and the terrain is uneven and treacherous. I stumble more than once, muttering curses under my breath, but manage to regain my footing each time. It's a sobering reminder that this environment cares little for my plans or ego. Mistakes here come with a price. Eventually, I discover a small clearing near a stream. The water is crystalline, flowing over rocks with a gentle, rhythmic murmur. It appears to be a promising spot, providing both shelter and proximity to water, with ample space to maneuver. I drop my backpack, feeling its weight lift from my shoulders. It's mostly bare, containing only my camera equipment and a few essentials. The true test will be surviving with the resources I can find here. I dedicate the next few hours to collecting firewood and constructing a rudimentary shelter. Nothing elaborate, just a basic structure to keep me elevated from the ground and dry in case of rain. As I work, I'm haunted by a creeping sensation of being observed. It starts as a faint prickling at the back of my mind, but intensifies as the sun sinks lower. I find myself glancing over my shoulder, scrutinizing the shadows between the trees. There's nothing visible, but the feeling persists, gnawing at my nerves. By the time my shelter is complete, twilight has descended. The jungle is now cloaked in darkness, with shadows lengthening and deepening. The ambient sounds have shifted. The daytime bird calls are replaced by the nocturnal symphony of the night. It's disconcerting, yet I force myself to suppress the anxiety. This is what I signed up for, after all. I sit beside the stream, immersing my hands in the cool, refreshing water. It provides a small comfort amidst the encroaching darkness. Day 1 nearly done. I speak into the camera, striving to keep my voice calm. It's been a rough start, but I'm holding up. Tomorrow I'll start foraging for food and perhaps set up some traps. For now, I'm going to get some rest. I turn off the camera and place it to the side. The jungle seems to envelop me, the darkness encroaching from all directions. Visibility is minimal, and the ground beneath me is unforgivingly hard. I pull my jacket tighter around myself, seeking warmth in the oppressive heat. Sleep evades me. The jungle's cacophony is louder now, every leaf rustle and twig snap sending my heart into overdrive. I know it's merely my imagination, that nothing has changed since daylight, but the sensation of being alone is inescapable. Just as I'm on the verge of drifting off, I feel it. A delicate tickling on my arm, so faint I question its reality. I freeze, my breath halting. The tickle continues, ascending my arm and crossing my chest. Slowly, almost agonizingly, I reach up and brush my skin. My fingers make contact with something small and delicate, and I flick it away with a startled yelp. A spider. Just a tiny one, barely the size of a coin, but enough to elicit a surge of fear. I sit up, my heart racing. It's just a spider, I remind myself. No cause for alarm. Yet as I survey my surroundings, I see them. Tiny, dark shapes skittering across the ground, climbing the walls of my shelter, dangling from the branches above. They're multiplying, too many to count, and they're converging on me. I scramble out of the shelter, kicking at the spiders as I go. They scatter but regroup quickly, closing in whenever I stop moving. I grab my camera, turning it on to capture the unfolding chaos. "This is insane," I say, struggling to mask the panic in my voice. "There are spiders everywhere. I don't know where they're coming from, but they keep coming." I retreat, but the spiders persist, a relentless swarm advancing towards me. I feel them crawling on my skin, clambering up my legs and across my arms. I swat at them, trying to dislodge them, but they're everywhere, suffocating me. In a frenzied panic, I bolt. I'm unsure where I'm headed, only that I need to escape. The jungle blurs around me, a dark, shifting mass as I stumble through the night. The spiders remain with me, clinging, biting. The venom courses through my veins, a chilling fire spreading through my body, yet I continue running, driven by sheer terror. The jungle seems infinite, the darkness swallowing me whole. I don't know how far I run, but eventually exhaustion overtakes me. I collapse, gasping for air, with spiders still crawling over me. I claw at them, attempting to remove them, but my limbs feel heavy and unresponsive. The venom is taking effect, numbing my body and slowing my thoughts. My vision dims, the darkness closing in. Just as consciousness slips away, I hear it, a low skittering sound akin to dry leaves rustling. It's alarmingly close. I try to move, but my body remains inert. The sound intensifies, a discordant symphony filling my head. The last thing I perceive before everything fades to black is the ground shifting, moving as though alive. And then, silence. Part 2. Early signs of trouble. I awaken to the sun filtering through the canopy, its rays casting fragmented patterns across the jungle floor. My head throbs, and a bitter taste lingers in my mouth. For a disorienting moment, I'm uncertain of my location or how I ended up here. As memories of the previous night come crashing back, I spring up, frantically brushing at my clothes, expecting to find lingering spiders. But there's nothing. No spiders, no bites, only dirt and leaves adhering to my skin. I inhale deeply, trying to steady myself. The jungle is unnervingly silent, the usual symphony of birds and insects conspicuously absent. It feels as though the entire forest is holding its breath, waiting for something. An unsettling feeling of being observed creeps over me, though I'm alone in this wild expanse. My camera lies a few feet away, partially buried in the undergrowth. I retrieve it, clearing away the grime, and review the footage. The battery is nearly depleted, but it captured everything from last night. The swarm of spiders, my frantic escape, and the moments leading to my collapse. Watching the footage sends a chill down my spine. It all seems too surreal, like a nightmarish dream I can't escape. Day 2. I speak into the camera, my voice wavering. Last night was beyond anything I expected. I'm not sure what happened. The spiders were everywhere, but now they're gone. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was the stress or fatigue. But I'm still here, and I need to push on. I attempt to rise, but my legs feel weak, trembling under me. It's as though I've run a marathon. Every muscle aches. I know I need water, food, anything to restore my strength. The stream isn't far, and I manage to hobble back to it, collapsing on the bank and immersing my hands in the cool, refreshing water. It offers brief relief from the stifling heat and humidity. As I drink, I notice something peculiar. My reflection in the water appears distorted, warped. The face looking back at me is familiar yet unsettling. The eyes seem too dark, too hollow. I jerk back, splashing water everywhere, heart racing. When I look again, my reflection is normal, just my weary, drawn face. "Pull yourself together, Liam," I mutter. "You're just exhausted, that's all." Yet deep down, I sense something more sinister at play. The jungle feels different today. Darker, more menacing. The trees seem to loom more threateningly, and the undergrowth appears denser, more entangling. It's as if the jungle itself is alive, subtly shifting and trying to ensnare me. The morning is spent foraging for food, but yields are scant. A few berries here, some edible leaves there, nothing substantial. My energy levels are plummeting, and my body feels increasingly feeble. The spiders are a constant presence in my thoughts, lurking at the fringes of my consciousness. I keep scanning the surroundings, half expecting them to emerge from the shadows, but there's nothing, only the oppressive silence of the jungle. As the day progresses, I start noticing them again. Tiny spiders initially, barely perceptible as they skitter across the ground or descend from the trees. I try to ignore them, concentrating on my food search, but they're omnipresent. Each time I glance down, there's another one, creeping across my hand or climbing my arm. I flick them away, only for more to take their place. It's not just the spiders. There's an oppressive weight in the air, making it difficult to breathe. The jungle feels as though it's closing in on me, the trees leaning closer, the shadows deepening. I have the distinct sensation of being watched, yet whenever I turn to look, there's nothing there. As the sun begins to set, my nerves are frayed, every sense heightened. The spiders have multiplied, their numbers swelling as the day wanes. They're no longer just small ones. Now I see larger ones. Tarantulas as big as my hand, perched on the branches above, their eyes gleaming ominously in the dimming light. I try to focus on starting a fire, a necessity to fend off the encroaching darkness, but my hands are too unsteady. The spiders are everywhere, crawling over the ground, across my legs and up my arms. I can't dislodge them. They're relentless, their tiny legs pricking my skin, their bodies cold and heavy. In a panic, I grab my camera, switching it on to document the chaos. "They're back," I stammer, struggling to control my fear. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're everywhere. I can't get away from them. I attempt to flee, but the jungle is a tangled maze. The underbrush is thick, ensnaring me. The spiders continue their assault, biting and stinging, their venom searing through my veins. I can feel the venom spreading, a numbing cold that clouds my thoughts. My vision blurs, the world spinning as I stagger through the darkness. I'm unsure how far I've run before I collapse again, the weight of the spiders overwhelming. They cover me, swarming over my body, crawling into my clothes, mouth, ears, and eyes. I'm unable to see, breathe, or think clearly. There's only the spiders, the darkness, and an overwhelming, chilling fear that this might be the end. But then, as suddenly as they appeared, the spiders vanish. I'm left on the jungle floor, gasping for air, my body trembling with fear. The jungle is silent once more, the oppressive weight lifting just enough for me to move. I manage to sit up, wiping the sweat and grime from my face. My body aches, every muscle protesting. But I'm alive. Somehow, I've survived. The jungle around me is dark, the night closing in. but a faint light flickers in the distance, a glimmer of hope. I don't understand why the spiders are tormenting me, but I know one thing. I can't remain here. I need to keep moving, find a way out of this nightmare before it consumes me. Clutching the camera like a lifeline, I start moving toward the light. The jungle is a labyrinth, the trees closing in on all sides, but I push forward, driven by a desperate need for escape. As I advance, the light grows brighter, and for the first time since entering the jungle, a flicker of hope ignites within me. Yet deep down, I know that the worst is still to come. Part 3. The web grows. The faint light ahead beckons me through the suffocating darkness of the jungle. Each step is a labor. My legs feel like lead, weighed down by the oppressive heat. My heart pounds frantically in my chest, a relentless drumbeat echoing in my ears. The jungle is eerily silent, the usual nocturnal chorus replaced by an oppressive quiet that presses against my skin. I keep the camera rolling, its red light a small comfort amidst the darkness. Day 3, I whisper, my voice barely audible over my ragged breathing. I'm not sure how much longer I can go. The spiders, they're getting worse. I don't know where they're coming from, but it feels like they're following me, watching me. The camera's weak light sweeps over the twisted trees and dense undergrowth. Shadows stretch and twist with each flicker, creating illusions of movement just beyond my sight. Even when the spiders aren't visibly present, I feel their phantom touch, tiny legs crawling across my skin, burrowing into my flesh. I shake my head, trying to clear the fog of exhaustion and fear. It's all in your head, Liam, I mutter, gripping the camera tighter. You're just tired, hungry, dehydrated, that's all. You need to keep moving. But I know deep down that it's more than that. The jungle feels fundamentally altered. Closer trees, thicker air, darker shadows. The ground beneath me seems unstable, as if it could give way and swallow me whole. I push on, the light ahead growing brighter and closer. It's unnatural, with a strange, almost ethereal quality, shifting and pulsing as though alive. But it's the only sign of life I've seen, and I'm too desperate to question its nature. As I push through the undergrowth, I begin to hear it. The sound of skittering, faint at first, but growing louder with each step. It's unmistakable, the relentless movement of countless tiny legs, sending chills down my spine. I stop, holding my breath, and the sound ceases, as if whatever is causing it is waiting for me. I turn the camera towards the trees, panning slowly, searching for the source. The jungle remains stubbornly silent, shadows deep and impenetrable. I start to doubt my senses, wondering if the jungle is playing tricks on me again. But then, just as I'm about to move on, I catch a glint of movement, something too quick to be human. My heart lurches, and I spin towards the movement, the camera's light catching the edge of something pale and thin, vanishing into the darkness. I step forward, the skittering noise returning, louder and closer. My pulse quickens, a mix of fear and adrenaline propelling me toward the sound. I stumble into a small clearing, and the light from the trees suddenly engulfs me, blinding in its intensity. I squint, raising a hand to shield my eyes. As the light fades, I see them. Hundreds, no, thousands of spiders, all sizes and shapes, covering the ground, the trees, even hanging from the branches above. I freeze, breath catching in my throat. The spiders remain motionless, observing me. The air is thick with the smell of decay, a sickly sweet odor that makes me gag. I step back, my foot crunching on something brittle. The sound echoes through the clearing, and the spiders react immediately, their bodies twitching as they begin to move. A slow, deliberate ripple spreading outwards. Panic surges through me and I try to run, but my feet won't move. The ground beneath me shifts, a thick, sticky substance wrapping around my ankles, pulling me down. I look down in horror to see I'm standing in a massive web, its strands thick and gleaming in the pale light. The spiders close in, a wave of black and brown, their bodies glistening. I struggle, pulling at my legs, but the web holds fast, its strands cutting into my skin. The spiders crawl closer, their eyes reflecting the light, fangs glinting as they approach. I scream, the sound raw and desperate, but it seems to excite them. The skittering grows deafening, drowning out everything else. I'm trapped, the web tightening around me, pulling me closer to the ground, closer to the waiting spiders. Then, just as abruptly as it started, it stops. The spiders freeze, their legs poised, eyes locked on me. The jungle falls silent, the air thick with tension. I can feel my heart pounding, each beat echoing in the stillness. I don't know how long we remain locked in this standoff. Slowly, the spiders begin to retreat, moving in unison as they vanish into the shadows. The web around my legs loosens and I collapse to the ground, gasping for air. My body shakes, my mind racing to make sense of what just happened. The clearing is empty, the spiders gone, but their presence still lingers just out of sight, waiting. I force myself to stand, legs trembling, and stagger away from the clearing, back into the thick jungle. The light is gone, leaving me in darkness, but I can still see the web stretching out before me. A grim reminder of how close I came to being ensnared. I walk for what feels like hours, the jungle shifting and changing around me. The trees twist into unnatural shapes, the ground beneath me slick and uneven. I keep moving, driven by an instinctive need to escape the spiders, the web, the jungle itself. But deep down, I know there's no true escape. The spiders are still there, lurking in the shadows, watching and waiting for the right moment to strike again. And next time, I might not be so lucky. Part 4. The first escape attempt. Daylight is fading fast, and with it, my last shred of confidence. My hands tremble as I fumble with the camera, struggling to steady my breathing long enough to record a coherent update. Day 4, I mutter, my voice catching in my dry throat. I've decided. I can't do this. I'm going to try and get out of here. It's too much. These spiders, this jungle. It's like they won't let me leave. I pause, letting the weight of my words settle. They sound ridiculous, paranoid, like something out of a horror movie. But this is real, too real, and the fear gnawing at my gut won't be silenced. I have to escape before the spiders close in again. The path I've been following is barely visible, swallowed by undergrowth and tangled vines. Every step is a battle, the thick foliage grabbing at my clothes and skin. I push forward, driven by memories of the spiders, how they seem to anticipate my every move, cutting off any chance of escape. It feels as though the jungle itself is conspiring against me. The camera's red light blinks at me, a weak and mocking reminder that I'm still documenting this nightmare. They're everywhere, I say, more to myself than to any potential viewers. I don't know how they keep finding me, but they do. No matter how far I go, no matter what I do, they're always there. I keep moving, the jungle growing darker and more oppressive with each passing minute. The sounds of the forest, once vibrant and full of life, are now muted, distorted, like a record playing at the wrong speed. The trees lean in closer, their branches forming a twisted canopy that blocks out the sky. I feel like I'm being funneled into a trap, the path narrowing, the jungle walls closing in on me. My breath quickens, panic rising. I stop to catch my breath, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the spiders swarming behind me. But there's nothing, only thick, impenetrable shadows. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched, that every step I take leads me further into their web. I need to calm down, think clearly. I wipe the sweat from my brow, trying to recall the route I'd mapped out. North. If I keep heading north, I should hit the river. From there, it's a straight shot to the edge of the jungle. The thought of the river, a barrier between me and the jungle, gives me a small glimmer of hope. I just need to keep moving. But the jungle isn't letting go that easily. I take a few steps forward, and suddenly the ground gives way beneath me. I stumble, my foot plunging into a hidden hole, and I'm sent sprawling to the ground. The camera slips from my grasp, skidding across the dirt as I struggle to free myself. Pain shoots through my ankle as I pull it free, and I bite back a curse, fighting the urge to cry out. I crawl to the camera, grabbing it with shaking hands. The lens is cracked, the display flickering, but it's still recording. Damn it, I whisper, gritting my teeth against the pain. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I get back on my feet, testing my weight on the injured ankle. It's not broken, but every step sends a sharp jolt of pain through my leg. I can't afford to slow down. Not now. Not when I'm this close. I have to keep moving, reach the river before… The skittering starts again, low and distant but growing louder with each passing second. I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. They're coming. I can hear them, the spiders closing in on me from all sides. Panic surges, and I start running, limping, really, down the path. The pain in my ankle forgotten in my desperation to escape. The skittering grows louder, echoing through the trees, reverberating in my skull. I don't dare look back, afraid of what I might see. The jungle blurs around me, a dark tunnel of twisted vines and gnarled roots, the path ahead narrowing to a single point. My breath comes in ragged gasps, the taste of copper on my tongue, my vision swimming as I push myself harder, faster. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the path ends. I skid to a stop, teetering on the edge of a steep drop. Below me, the jungle stretches out in all directions, an endless sea of green and shadow. The river. I can see it, a thin silver ribbon cutting through the forest far below. But between me and it is nothing but air. I back away from the edge, chest heaving, mind racing. There's no way down, no way to cross. I'm trapped. The realization hits me like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. I collapse to the ground, clutching the camera to my chest as the skittering sound grows deafening. I look around, desperate for any way out, but there's nothing. Only the jungle, the darkness, and the spiders. They're here now. I can feel them, creeping out of the shadows, closing in from all sides. My hands tremble as I raise the camera, the lens capturing the twisted roots and vines that seem to pulse and writhe with a life of their own. And then I see them. They pour out of the trees, a wave of black and brown, their bodies glistening in the dim light. The spiders, hundreds, thousands of them, swarm towards me, their eyes gleaming, their legs moving in a terrifying, synchronized rhythm. They're not just following me, they're hunting me, driving me to this point, to this edge, where there's no escape. I try to stand, but my injured ankle gives out and I fall back to the ground. The spiders are on me now, crawling over my legs, arms, and face. I scream, thrashing wildly, trying to shake them off, but there are too many. They're in my hair, my clothes, biting, stinging, overwhelming me with their sheer numbers. The camera slips from my hands, falling to the ground, its lens pointed up at the darkening sky. The last thing it captures is me, flailing helplessly as the spiders cover me completely, their bodies merging into one writhing, pulsating mass. And then the screen goes black. Part 5. Nightfall brings terror. The encroaching darkness of the jungle feels like a tangible force, pressing down on me, suffocating me with its weight. Each breath is a laborious task, thick with humidity and the acrid scent of decay. My body trembles uncontrollably, the exhaustion and fear overwhelming my senses. Every step I take sends a jolt of pain through my injured ankle, a constant reminder of my precarious situation. The spiders have retreated for now, but their presence lingers like a dark cloud of dread. I know they're still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The jungle around me is eerily quiet, the usual nighttime sounds, chirping insects, rustling leaves, absent, replaced by a heavy, unnatural stillness that seems to amplify every sound, every heartbeat. It's as though the forest itself is holding its breath, anticipating something terrible. I find a small clearing, a marginally safer spot to rest for the night. I set up a makeshift shelter using a torn piece of tarp and some branches. The thin fabric barely offers any protection from the jungle's malevolent embrace. The camera is still functioning, though its battery is running low. I keep it recording, its red light a small comfort in the growing darkness. Night 4. I say into the camera, my voice ragged and hollow. I'm trying to stay calm, but it's hard. The spiders are everywhere, I can't escape them. I don't know how much longer I can take this. The shadows around me seem to deepen, the trees casting twisted, distorted shapes on the ground. I feel a shiver run down my spine, an almost palpable sense of being watched that I can't shake. I try to convince myself it's just my imagination, the product of my fear and fatigue, but deep down, I know it's more than that. There's something in the jungle that is aware of me, something that is actively pursuing me. I settle down in the shelter, trying to ignore the itching sensation of spiders crawling over my skin. A phantom touch that makes my skin crawl. I pull the edges of the tarp tight, trying to seal myself in. But the fabric is torn and frayed, offering little protection. The jungle is alive with a quiet, unsettling hum. The sound of unseen creatures moving just beyond the edge of my vision. The air grows colder, and my breath forms small clouds in the dim light of the camera. As the night wears on, the temperature drops, and I shiver uncontrollably, my teeth chattering as I try to stay warm. My mind starts to play tricks on me, shadows shifting and stretching in the corners of my vision, the darkness closing in. I hear faint rustling sounds, the soft click of legs against leaves, and my fear spikes with every faint sound. The rustling grows louder, more insistent, until it becomes a rhythmic tapping, like 1,000 tiny fingers drumming against the ground. I sit up, straining to see in the darkness, but the jungle remains impenetrable. The sound grows louder, more persistent, and I realize with growing horror that it's coming from above. I turn the camera upwards, the light catching on the writhing mass of spiders descending from the trees. They're dropping down in droves, their bodies glistening in the weak light, their legs moving in a nightmarish dance. My heart races, my breath coming in frantic gasps as I watch in horror. The spiders cover the canopy, their webbing forming an intricate, glistening lattice that blocks out the little light that remains. The tapping sound is the sound of their tiny feet as they move, their bodies converging on my location. They're methodical, deliberate, and their presence is suffocating. The webbing on the canopy seems to pulse and writhe, a living entity in itself, suffocating the little light that remains. I scramble out of the shelter, my injured ankle screaming in protest, and stumble into the clearing. The spiders are everywhere now, covering the ground, the trees, the very air around me. The webbing has grown thick, forming a sticky barrier that entangles me as I try to move. I pull and yank, but the web clings to me, its strands sticky and strong, pulling at my clothes, tangling in my hair. In my panic, I hear a faint, almost imperceptible whisper carried on the wind. It's a sound like 1,000 voices murmuring in unison, a language I can't understand, but instinctively fear. The whispers grow louder, blending with the rustling of the spiders and the creaking of the trees. It's a cacophony of sound, a symphony of terror that drowns out everything else. The whispers seem to have a rhythm, a pattern that matches the spiders' movements. The spiders seem to react to the whispers, their movements growing more frantic and synchronized. They cover me, crawling over my skin, their tiny legs prickling and biting. I scream, the sound raw and desperate, but it's swallowed by the jungle's oppressive silence. The whispers grow louder, as if they're coming from inside my head, a relentless, maddening noise that drowns out all rational thought. I try to shield myself from the spiders, but they're relentless. Crawling under my clothes, into my hair, their bites sending sharp stings through my flesh. I can feel their tiny fangs piercing my skin, the sensation maddening as if they're feeding on my fear. The webbing tightens around me, wrapping around my limbs, pulling me down. The whispers grow louder, more insistent, and I can feel the jungle itself closing in on me. The trees seem to lean closer, their branches stretching out like gnarled fingers. The webbing pulls tighter, wrapping around me like a cocoon. I'm trapped, ensnared in the spider's web, a prisoner of the jungle's dark embrace. The more I struggle, the tighter the web seems to become, squeezing the air from my lungs. In my last moments of consciousness, I can't tell if the whispers are real, or just a figment of my tortured mind. All I know is that the spiders are everywhere, their presence suffocating, their whispers a haunting lullaby that lulls me into a state of terror and despair. The jungle's darkness seems to close in on me, the oppressive silence swallowing my screams and the last vestiges of my sanity. The camera's light flickers, the screen distorting as the web tightens around me. The last image it captures is a close-up of the spiders crawling over my face, their tiny legs moving in a nightmarish dance. And then the screen goes dark, the jungle's silence swallowing the final moments of my ordeal. Part 6. The web tightens. The jungle's darkness is relentless, a crushing weight that seems almost sentient. Each breath I take is labored, my body wrapped tightly in the spider's webbing. The strands cling to my skin, sticky and unyielding, forming an impenetrable cocoon that makes every attempt to escape feel like trying to move through thick, viscous glue. My body is immobilized, confined to a few inches of movement, and the spiders, their tiny bodies pressing against me, their legs moving in a frantic synchronized dance, only compound my terror. The camera's dim light is a feeble beacon in the oppressive gloom. I clutch it desperately, its red glow casting eerie shadows on my face as I try to document my plight. "They're tightening their web!" I manage to say, my voice quavering with fear. "I can feel it pulling me in. I can't get out. The spiders, they're—" A sudden, sharp pain erupts as the spiders begin to bite more aggressively. Their tiny fangs dig into my flesh with horrifying precision, sending waves of agony through my body. I gasp, the sensation both sharp and burning. I try to shift my weight, but the webbing only tightens, the strands cutting into my skin like barbed wire. My screams echo into the stillness, but they are swallowed by the jungle's oppressive silence. As the pain intensifies, the whispers return, louder and more insistent than before. They seem to emanate from all around me, a chorus of murmured voices speaking in a language I cannot comprehend, but which chills me to the core. The whispers intertwine with the skittering of the spiders, creating a haunting symphony that reverberates through the night. The whispers grow louder, the voices merging into an unsettling chant that pulses through the air. I struggle to identify their source, but the darkness remains impenetrable, the shadows shifting and stretching in a way that makes my mind reel. The spiders' skittering grows louder, their movements synchronized with the whispers, weaving a tapestry of sound that heightens my sense of dread. The webbing continues to constrict, pressing down on me with a relentless pressure that feels almost intelligent. The spiders seem to be working together, their coordinated movements ensuring that I cannot break free. Each attempt to wriggle loose is met with tighter bonds, the strands cutting deeper into my flesh, making my efforts to escape increasingly futile. In the feeble light of the camera, the spiders become more visible, larger, their bodies glistening with an unnatural sheen. Their eyes reflect the camera's dim glow, thousands of tiny pinpricks of red and green, a sea of unblinking predatory gazes that send shivers down my spine. They move with an unnerving precision, crawling over me with a disturbing level of coordination that feels almost sentient. I close my eyes, trying to block out the sight of them, but the sensation of their tiny legs crawling over my skin is inescapable. The fear has become a physical presence, a crushing weight on my chest that makes it difficult to breathe. I can't determine if the whispers are emanating from the spiders themselves, or if my mind is playing tricks on me, but the effect is the same, an overwhelming sense of dread that makes every moment feel like an eternity. Time loses all meaning as I lie there, ensnared in the webbing, surrounded by the spiders. My mind races, desperately seeking a way out, but the solution eludes me. Every instinct tells me to fight, to break free, but the webbing is too tight, too strong. The spiders seem to be everywhere, their presence suffocating, their movements a constant reminder of my helplessness. The camera's light flickers, the battery nearing its end. I feel the final moments of my ordeal slipping away. The whispers intensify, their voices merging into a chilling chant that seems to echo through the jungle, growing louder with each passing second. The spiders crawl over my face, their legs brushing against my skin, their bites a relentless reminder of their presence. I attempt to speak, to cry out, but the words catch in my throat, swallowed by the combined forces of fear and exhaustion. My strength wanes, my body growing weaker under the continuous assault of the spiders. The camera captures the last fleeting moments of my ordeal, my face pale and haunted, my eyes wide with terror, the spiders crawling over me in a nightmarish dance. The screen goes dark, the camera's final image a close-up of the spiders swarming over my face, their tiny bodies merging into a writhing mass. The jungle's silence returns, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of the spider's legs against the webbing, a haunting reminder of the nightmare that has consumed me. The night presses in, the darkness profound and all-encompassing, leaving behind only the soft, sinister murmur of the spiders and the unrelenting quiet of the jungle. Part 7. Hallucinations and Desperation. The jungle has transformed into an unending abyss of dread, its darkness seeping into my very core, warping reality into a grotesque nightmare. The spider's webbing binds me tightly, a suffocating prison that constricts with every breath. Exhaustion has overtaken my body, and my mind teeters on the brink of collapse. The line between hallucination and reality is alarmingly blurred, distorting my perceptions into a disorienting, terrifying tableau. The whispers have become a relentless drone, an omnipresent cacophony that fills my ears and drowns out all other sounds. They emanate from every direction, above, below, behind me, creating an overwhelming sense of disorientation. The whispers are a language I can't decipher, but their tone is unmistakably cruel, mocking, a constant reminder of my isolation and helplessness. The camera's dim light flickers weakly in the encroaching darkness, casting feeble beams that barely penetrate the oppressive gloom. I struggle to focus the lens, but the shadows twist and contort into grotesque forms. The spiders, once a mere nuisance, have become central to my torment. Their tiny legs scratch and scrape against the webbing, producing a sound that reverberates in my head like nails on a chalkboard. Their cold, unblinking eyes and relentless movement are a ceaseless source of terror. As I lie immobilized in the webbing, the jungle around me begins to warp in ways that defy comprehension. Trees contort into monstrous shapes, their branches extending like gnarled fingers, reaching out as if to ensnare me. Shadows animate, creeping along the ground, forming shifting, eerie shapes that close in on me. My vision blurs, and I am unable to distinguish whether these distortions are a product of my unraveling sanity, or if the jungle itself is alive with malevolent intent. The hallucinations become more vivid and intense. The spiders take on an almost sentient quality, their movements appearing purposeful, coordinated. They form intricate patterns in the webbing, designs that seem to mock my futile attempts at escape. It feels as though they are playing a cruel game with me, drawing me deeper into their trap, savoring my growing despair. Time loses all meaning as I lie bound and weakened. My body is failing, the constricting webbing and the spider's relentless bites causing a spreading numbness. The pain is a persistent throbbing ache that pulses in sync with the whispers, amplifying my sense of hopelessness and despair. I try to speak to the camera to leave a final message, but my words emerge as slurred, disjointed fragments. The fear and exhaustion cloud my thoughts, making coherent speech nearly impossible. They're everywhere, I manage to utter. I can't escape. They're watching me, waiting. The jungle around me continues to shift and warp, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. Shapes move at the edge of my vision, creatures with glowing eyes that seem to observe me with predatory intent. The whispers intensify, their sound becoming a constant drone that fills my mind with an overwhelming sense of impending doom. The spiders appear in impossible places, in the sky, in the water, even in the camera's reflection. Their bodies seem to merge into a writhing, pulsating mass, a nightmarish vision that sends my heart racing. I try to convince myself it's just a hallucination, a trick of my frayed mind, but the fear is overpowering. The camera's light flickers, its battery nearly depleted. Shadows encroach, and the webbing tightens, growing more suffocating with every breath. The oppressive pressure adds to my mounting terror. The whispers crescendo into a haunting, chilling chant that makes my skin crawl. In the final moments of clarity, I grasp the horrifying truth. The spiders are not merely a figment of my nightmare. They are a manifestation of the jungle's malevolent energy. They are an extension of the jungle's darkness, feeding on my fear and despair. This realization, though terrifying, provides a twisted sense of understanding, a final piece of the grotesque puzzle that has consumed me. The camera captures the last fleeting moments of my ordeal. The spiders crawl over my face, their legs moving in a frenetic, mocking dance. The oppressive darkness of the jungle closes in, swallowing the final image of the spiders' glistening bodies. The screen fades to black, leaving only the haunting echoes of the whispers and the suffocating silence of the jungle. Part 8. The Swarm. I awaken in a haze, my mind clouded by disorientation and weakness. The oppressive webbing still binds me, and the spiders have escalated from a mere infestation to a living, breathing swarm. Their tiny legs scrape incessantly against my skin, a maddening rhythm that amplifies the ever-present terror. The jungle around me is a swirling blur of darkness and movement, with the camera's feeble light struggling to cut through the suffocating blackness. The whispers have transformed into a cacophony of sinister murmurs, a relentless drone that reverberates through my skull. Night has deepened, bringing with it a new wave of dread. The spiders have coalesced into a terrifying mass, their numbers so overwhelming that they merge into a pulsating sea of horror. They move with an eerie cohesion, a writhing, undulating mass that engulfs everything in its path. I struggle to keep the camera steady, my hands trembling with fear as I try to capture the enormity of the swarm. Spiders fall from the trees, their bodies gliding silently through the air before landing on me with soft, sickening thuds. They crawl over my face, their legs brushing against my skin, their tiny fangs sinking into my flesh with a relentless precision. Panic surges in my chest, a hot, suffocating wave that makes each breath laborious. I attempt to move, to escape, but the webbing constricts tighter with every effort. The spiders' bodies press down on me, their weight making each movement a Herculean task. The bites are everywhere, a constant throbbing pain that pulses in rhythm with the swarm's ceaseless movement. Their clicking and hissing create a haunting symphony, filling the night with an oppressive sense of menace. It feels as if the spiders are communicating in an intelligent manner, their movements synchronized, their actions deliberate. They seem to be guiding me deeper into their trap, ensuring that escape is impossible. The jungle is engulfed by the sound of the swarm, a constant, oppressive noise that drowns out all other sounds. The usual rustling of leaves, the creaking of branches, and the whisper of the wind are swallowed by the cacophony of spiders. The darkness is complete, the camera's light barely penetrating the thick, oppressive blackness that surrounds me. My heart races, each beat a thunderous drum echoing through the silence. I try to focus on the camera, to document the horror, but fear and exhaustion cloud my vision. The spiders seem to merge into a single, undulating mass, a nightmarish sea of legs and eyes that creates a terrifying mosaic of terror. Their eyes reflect the camera's light, tiny pinpricks of red and green that add to the overall sense of dread. The webbing grows thicker, more oppressive, tightening around me like a relentless shroud. The spiders crawl over me in a frenzied dance, their legs moving with a precision that feels almost deliberate. Their bites are sharp and persistent, a constant reminder of their presence, a never-ending torment that makes each moment stretch into an eternity. Desperation sets in as I fully grasp the extent of my predicament. The swarm is not a random event. It is a carefully orchestrated trap, a nightmare that has been lying in wait for me. The spiders are not merely creatures of the jungle. They are its embodiment, a living manifestation of its dark, malevolent energy. My attempts to escape are futile. The webbing and the spiders work in tandem to ensure I remain ensnared. I try to call for help, but my voice is lost in the sea of whispers and clicking, swallowed by the relentless swarm that surrounds me. The camera captures my final moments of despair, my face pale and etched with terror, the spiders crawling over me in a nightmarish frenzy. The swarm seems to close in tighter, their bodies pressing down, their bites a constant throbbing pain that blurs my thoughts. I feel myself slipping away, my strength waning as the spiders continue their relentless assault. The camera's light flickers, its battery nearly depleted, and the darkness closes in, a suffocating shroud that envelops me. In my final moments of clarity, I understand the full horror that has consumed me. The spiders are not merely a part of the jungle, they are its ultimate expression, a living, breathing nightmare that has awaited my arrival. The swarm is a final, crushing reminder of my helplessness, a relentless torment that makes every second feel like an eternity. The screen fades to black, the last image a close-up of the spiders' glistening bodies, their tiny legs moving in a frenzied dance that mocks my futile attempts to escape. Part 9. The Final Encounter. I awaken in a fog of disorientation and dread, my body feeling heavy and unresponsive. The webbing around me has tightened further, its suffocating embrace a constant reminder of my dire predicament. My surroundings are a tangled mess of darkness and spider silk, with the jungle's oppressive silence only broken by the occasional rustle of the swarm. The camera's feeble light reveals a macabre tableau of entangled branches and the gleaming bodies of spiders, their eyes reflecting a predatory gleam. The spiders are everywhere, their presence a creeping terror that gnaws at my sanity. Their legs crawl over me with a relentless tickling sensation that drives me to the edge of madness. Every attempt to move or push them away is futile. The webbing constricts tighter with every motion, trapping me in a nightmarish embrace. In a moment of fleeting clarity, I realize I am not alone. The spiders are converging on a specific point, the center of their web, where I am ensnared. It feels as if they are guiding me to this place, forcing me into their final horrifying trap. The jungle itself seems to close in around me, the trees bending and warping into grotesque human-like shapes. Their shadows stretch and writhe, amplifying my growing sense of claustrophobia. My breaths come in short, ragged gasps, each inhalation a struggle against the thick, suffocating air. The camera's light flickers weakly, casting eerie, shifting shadows that make the spiders' bodies appear even more monstrous. I see them forming patterns in the webbing, intricate and unnerving designs that seem almost sentient, as if they are communicating with one another. Suddenly, the spiders begin to retreat, their movements creating a disturbing sense of anticipation. They leave behind a widening circle of empty space, the webbing drawn tight, pulling me into a central position. The silence that follows is deafening, a heavy, oppressive quiet that fills me with a sense of impending doom. My heartbeat echoes in my ears, each thud a thunderous drum that seems to reverberate through the stillness. Then I see it, a massive, shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. It moves with an unnatural grace, its form shifting and warping as it approaches. My heart races, terror nearly overwhelming me. The figure is vaguely human but distorted, its features twisted into a grotesque parody of a face. Its eyes, if they can be called that, are dark voids that seem to absorb the faint light of the camera. The figure's presence is suffocating, its malevolence palpable. I can feel its gaze on me, a cold, penetrating force that seems to reach into the depths of my soul. The spiders, once a chaotic swarm, now move with a deliberate, almost reverent pace, their bodies forming a living shroud around the figure. They crawl over me in a calculated, ritualistic manner, their bites a constant reminder of their control. I try to scream, but the sound is swallowed by the oppressive silence. The figure draws closer, its form becoming more distinct. It seems to be made of shadows, its movements smooth and fluid, as if it is both part of the darkness and a force that controls it. The spider's actions become more frantic, their movements a chaotic dance that seems to mirror the figure's approach. As the figure reaches me, the webbing tightens further, its constriction a physical manifestation of the terror that grips me. I can feel the spiders crawling over my face, their tiny legs pressing into my skin, their fangs sinking deeper with each passing second. The figure looms over me, its presence a suffocating weight that makes every breath a struggle. In my final moments, I try to record a last message, but my voice is barely a whisper, lost in the overwhelming darkness. The camera's light flickers erratically, casting eerie shadows that make the figure appear even more monstrous. The spider's movements become more frenetic, their bodies writhing in a nightmarish dance that seems to celebrate the culmination of their plan. The figure's shadow falls over me, its form becoming a dark, suffocating blanket that envelops me completely. The spiders swarm in a final frantic rush, their bodies pressing down, their bites a relentless torment. The camera captures the last, fleeting moments of my terror. The figure's dark, empty gaze, the spiders' glistening bodies, and the suffocating webbing that binds me. The screen fades to black, the last image a haunting reminder of the horror that has consumed me. The darkness is complete, the camera's light extinguished, leaving only the echo of the whispers and the chilling silence of the jungle. Part 10. The Aftermath. The jungle has settled into an almost eerie stillness, its dense foliage now cloaked in an oppressive darkness. The camera, half buried in the thick webbing that has claimed the forest floor, is a silent witness to the aftermath of the horror. The once vibrant greens of the jungle are now muted under the heavy blanket of night, with only the faintest traces of light reflecting off the tangled webs. The oppressive silence is broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures moving in the darkness, their presence adding to the sense of foreboding that hangs heavy in the air. The camera's feeble light, now reduced to a dim flicker, casts long, distorted shadows across the ground. The intricate patterns of spider silk, which had once been a mere backdrop to Liam's ordeal, are now the dominant feature of the scene. The webs, glistening with a sinister sheen, stretch between the trees like a grotesque, shimmering tapestry. The patterns they form are unsettling, with their irregular, almost fractal designs creating an eerie and surreal landscape. Around the camera, the remnants of the chaos are strewn about, torn bits of equipment, fragments of webbing, and other debris from Liam's desperate struggle. The camera's lens captures these remnants in haunting detail, the faint light revealing the twisted, macabre beauty of the spider silk. The ground is littered with broken branches and tangled strands of web, creating a scene of unsettling desolation. As the camera's battery continues to drain, the light grows weaker, its flickers casting ghostly, shifting shadows that dance and sway in the encroaching darkness. The jungle seems to exhale a sigh of relief, as if the conclusion of its dark ritual has brought a temporary peace. The shadows stretch and warp in the dim light, their movements creating an almost living, breathing tapestry of fear. A lone spider emerges from the depths of the shadows, its tiny, glistening body moving with deliberate, almost menacing precision. It crawls across the camera lens, its many eyes reflecting the dim light with an unnerving, sentient glimmer. The spider moves methodically, its legs creating faint, rhythmic patterns on the lens. It pauses at the edge of the camera's view, as if savoring the final moments of its triumph. The camera's final images form a chilling tableau of the aftermath. The spider's slow, deliberate crawl is captured in eerie detail, its body casting shifting shadows that dance across the camera lens. The intricate webbing around the camera forms a nightmarish mosaic, a grotesque display of the jungle's power and malevolence. The webs glisten in the dim light, their eerie sheen adding to the oppressive atmosphere. As the camera's light fades to nothingness, the encroaching darkness begins to dominate. The shadows grow deeper, swallowing the last remnants of the scene. The camera captures only the growing blackness, the spider's silhouette gradually receding into the gloom. The lens, once an eye that saw too much, now bears witness to the implacable void of the jungle. In the final moments before the camera's light extinguishes completely, the image is one of profound desolation and haunting silence. The spider's retreating form is the last vestige of life in a scene that has become a chilling testament to the jungle's unfeeling nature. The camera's final shot is a ghostly reflection of the nightmare that has unfolded, a silent, haunting witness to the jungle's power and the horrors that have transpired. As the screen fades to black, the sense of foreboding lingers, a palpable presence that seems to fill the void left by Liam's disappearance. The jungle remains silent and watchful, its secrets concealed in the darkness, its spiders lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unwary traveler to stumble into their web. The finality of the scene leaves an unsettling question hanging in the air. What other horrors lie in wait for those who dare to venture into the depths of this malevolent forest? The aftermath is a chilling reminder of the jungle's insatiable hunger, its dark, unfeeling nature. Liam's fate remains shrouded in mystery, a tragic enigma that adds to the jungle's eerie legacy. The camera's final haunting images serve as a chilling testament to the jungle's power and the terrifying unknown that awaits anyone who dares to enter its depths. The forest stands silent, a dark sentinel that will continue to watch and wait, its secrets hidden in the shadows, forever preserving the legacy of the horrors that have transpired. The camera's final lingering shot captures a single solitary spider as it crawls slowly across the lens, its legs moving with deliberate, almost ritualistic precision. The image freezes in the last moments of light, a final haunting reminder of the jungle's insidious presence. As the screen fades to black, the spider's form slowly disappears into the darkness, leaving only the lingering sense of dread and the chilling reminder of the jungle's ever-watchful eyes. So, my friends, that's the end of the story. You can go to my playlist and see many more interesting, scary stories.